The Carina Nebula stretched across the viewport like spilled watercolors, its purples and blues casting an ethereal glow across the Star Scavenger's bridge. Dr. Emily Winters stood at her station, her fingers dancing across the holographic display as she monitored the crew's vital signs during their delicate navigation through the asteroid field. "Contact, bearing 035, called out Marcus Rodriguez from the sensor station. "Energy signatures unlike anything in our database." Captain Diana Foster leaned forward in her chair, her weathered face illuminated by the nebula's light. "Define unlike anything, Rodriguez." "It's pulsing, ma'am, almost like a heartbeat, but the wavelength keeps shifting. Whatever it is, it's coming from that derelict caught in the dwarf star's gravity well." Winters felt a chill run down her spine as the derelict ship came into view. Its hull was obsidian black, curved like a predator's claw, with what appeared to be crystalline growths sprouting from various points along its surface. The vessel was slowly spiraling toward the dwarf star, its trajectory suggesting it had been drifting for weeks, maybe months. "All hands, prep for salvage operation," Foster commanded. "Winters, you're with the boarding team. If something's alive in there, I want to know about it." The trek across open space to the derelict was treacherous. Micro-asteroids pinged off their suit's shields, each impact sending a shower of sparks into the void. As they approached the alien vessel's airlock, Engineer Jake Thompson whistled over the comm. "Would you look at that hull composition? It's absorbing our scanner beams like they're nothing. This tech is decades ahead of anything we've got." Winters was about to respond when she heard it, a sound that shouldn't have been possible in the vacuum of space. A melody, haunting and beautiful, threading through their comm system like a ghost in the machine. It resonated at a frequency that made her chest ache, stirring memories of lullabies and childhood comfort. "Tell me everyone else heard that," Security Chief Sarah Martinez whispered, her rifle scanning the shadows of the alien corridor they'd just entered. They followed the sound deeper into the ship, their helmet lights cutting through the darkness. The interior was organic, almost alive, with walls that seemed to pulse with bioluminescent patterns. The melody grew stronger, more desperate, pulling them toward what appeared to be the ship's medical bay. "Doc," Thompson called out, his voice tight. "These readings, the air's breathable, but there's something else. Some kind of psychic resonance I've never seen before." The medical bay doors were sealed, crystal formations growing across their surface like frozen lightning. It took Thompson 10 minutes to bypass the alien security protocols, and when the doors finally slid open, the melody hit them like a physical force. In the center of the room, a stasis pod pulsed with failing light. Through its frosted surface, Winters could make out a small form, no larger than a human child. The creature inside had iridescent scales that shifted color with each labored breath, and 6 eyes that opened as they approached, glowing with intelligence and fear. "It's dying," Winters breathed, her medical scanners going haywire. "The stasis field is breaking down at the molecular level. 10 minutes, maybe less. Protocol says we quarantine unknown species," Martinez reminded them, but her voice wavered as the creature's melody changed, becoming a plea that transcended language. Winters stepped forward, her hand hovering over the stasis pod's controls. "Look at the neural patterns on these scans. This isn't just some animal. It's a child. And it's frightened." "Doc," Foster's voice crackled over the comm. "Those are first contact protocols you're thinking of breaking. Your medical license, your freedom, everything's on the line here." The creature's eyes fixed on Winters, and in that moment, she felt a connection that defied explanation. Pain, fear, and desperate hope flowed between them like an electrical current. "Then let it be on the line," Winters replied, her fingers moving to override the stasis pod's failing systems. "Because I won't watch a child die while we debate protocols." As the pod's crystal surface began to crack, none of them could have known that this moment, this single act of compassion, would change the course of human history forever. Quarantine protocols breached in Medical Bay 3. The ship's AI blared its warning as emergency containment fields snapped into place, bathing the corridor in crimson light. Dr. Winters worked frantically to stabilize the alien child, her hand steady despite the chaos erupting around her. Engineering reports the containment field is drawing too much power. Thompson's voice crackled through the comm. We've got maybe 20 minutes before we lose artificial gravity. The creature's scales shifted from iridescent blue to a sickly gray as its vital signs fluctuated. Each pulse of its bio readings triggered another warning from the ship's systems, identifying compounds in its blood that could melt through human tissue in seconds. Emily, get out of there now. Captain Foster's command cut through the air. That's a direct order. But Winters couldn't move. The moment the stasis pod had opened, the alien child had latched onto her suit's arm with what appeared to be a secondary limb, delicate, almost translucent. Its touch sent waves of images crashing through her mind. Stars seen through alien eyes, the warmth of a parent's embrace, the terror of being torn away from everything familiar. Its cellular structure is breaking down, Winters reported, fighting to keep her voice professional as another wave of the child's fear washed over her. The stasis pod was the only thing keeping it alive. And now, she swallowed hard. Captain, I need authorization to use the experimental regeneration chamber. The silence that followed felt eternal. That chamber cost more than our ship, Martinez cut in. The company will have our heads if we... To hell with the company. The force of Winters' outburst surprised even her. 5 years ago, I stood in a terraforming hospital and watched my daughter die because we didn't have the right equipment. I won't let that happen again. Not when I can do something about it. The alien child's melody changed, becoming weaker, more fragmented. Its 6 eyes began to close, scales dulling further. Think about what you're risking. Foster's voice was softer now. Best case scenario, you save it and spend the rest of your life in a corporate prison. Worst case, that thing is carrying a pathogen that wipes out half the colony when we dock. Winters watched the child's vital signs continuing to drop. In her mind, she saw another medical bay, another child slipping away while bureaucrats debated protocols. She saw her daughter, Rebecca, asking why the doctors couldn't fix her. Remembered promising everything would be okay. She had lied then. She wouldn't lie now. Computer, medical override Winters, Alpha 79. Initiate emergency transport to regeneration chamber. Override denied. The AI responded. Secondary authorization required. Damn it, Emily. Foster's voice cracked with emotion. You're going to throw everything away for an alien we know nothing about. The child's grip on Winters' suit weakened. Its melody, once so clear, began to fade. Diana, Winters said softly, using her captain's first name for the first time in their 5 years together. When we signed up for deep space salvage, we all said the same thing. We wanted to make a difference, to find something that mattered. Look at your scans. This isn't just an alien, it's a child. Someone's child. And right now, we're all it has. 3 seconds passed. 4, 5. Computer. Foster's voice was barely a whisper. Command authorization, Foster 90 Delta. Execute medical override. The regeneration chamber hummed to life, its crystal matrices glowing with borrowed power. As Winters carefully lifted the alien child, its scales brushed against her suit's sensors, and a new wave of images flooded her mind. A massive ship, sleek and terrible, cutting through space. A warrior's fury, burning bright enough to consume stars. A parent's love, twisted into something deadly by loss. Thank you, Captain, Winters said, placing the child into the chamber. As its healing field engaged, she added quietly, I hope we don't live to regret this. She couldn't have known then just how prophetic those words would prove to be. The regeneration chamber cast a pale blue glow across Medical Bay 3, its light pulsing in rhythm with the alien child's heartbeat. Dr. Winters hadn't left her post in 16 hours, her eyes fixed on readings she was only beginning to understand. Your coffee, Doc, Thompson said, floating a steaming mug through the low-gravity environment. Though you look like you need something stronger. Winters caught the mug without looking up. The neural patterns are unlike anything in our database. See these spikes. She gestured to a holographic display where complex waveforms danced. They're reaching out, trying to connect with something. Or someone. Thompson replied, his voice dropping. The crew's been talking. Martinez says she's been having dreams, weird ones, about stars she's never seen and ships that move like living things. The alien child stirred in the chamber, its scales rippling from gray to a deep purple. The movement revealed what Winters had initially thought were injuries, but now recognized as self-inflicted wounds. Defensive patterns, carved into its own flesh. It was protecting something. Winters murmured, reaching out to touch the chamber's crystal surface. The moment her fingers made contact, the world exploded into color and sound. She was running through corridors that breathed, heart pounding as plasma fire melted the walls behind her. Larger hands, parents' hands, pushing her toward the safety pod. A promise, sung in frequencies that made reality shiver. I will find you. Doc. Doc. Thompson's voice pulled her back. She found herself on her knees, blood trickling from her nose. I'm calling the captain. Wait. Winters gasped. I saw what happened. Pirates. They attacked the transport, but they weren't just looking for salvage. They knew what they were hunting. The medical bay's lights flickered as another power surge hit. On the main display, a new data pattern emerged, one that made Thompson's face go pale. That can't be right, he whispered. Computer, run species verification again. Species confirmed, the AI responded. Subject displays genetic markers consistent with Varkath biology. Caution advised. Species classified as extreme threat to human life. Winters felt her blood run cold. Everyone knew about the Varkath, the warrior race that had turned 3 human colonies into asteroid fields during the border disputes. Their technology was decades beyond humanity's, and their code of honor made ancient Spartans look lenient. We have to tell the captain, Thompson said, already reaching for his comm. Another surge of images flooded Winter's mind as the child's neural patterns spiked. A vast chamber filled with crystalline archives. The weight of tradition, of expectations. A parent's pride when she mastered her first empathic projection. The shame of failing to fight off the pirates, of breaking the warrior's code by hiding instead of dying with honor. It's not just showing me memories, Winters realized. It's trying to explain. The Varkath, we've misunderstood them. Their aggression, their territoriality. It's all tied to this ability. They feel everything so deeply that war isn't just strategy to them. It's personal. The chamber's readings suddenly spiked. The child's 6 eyes snapped open, all of them fixed on the medical bay's viewport. Its melody, which had been soft and uncertain, transformed into a harmonious cry that made the ship's hull resonate. What's happening? Thompson demanded, watching as every piece of electronic equipment in the bay began to glitch simultaneously. Winters didn't answer immediately. Through her newfound connection with the child, she felt what it felt. A presence vast and ancient, burning with an intensity that defied comprehension. The love and rage of a parent who had traversed 12 star systems, leaving destruction in their wake, searching for their lost child. It knows we're here, Winters whispered, her voice trembling. Its parent is coming. As if in response to her words, the ship's proximity alarms began to wail. On the main screen, a massive shape emerged from hyperspace, a Varkath warship, its crystalline hull glowing with enough power to reduce the star scavenger to atoms. The child's melody rose to a crescendo, calling out to the approaching vessel. And in that moment, Dr. Emily Winters realized that their time for choices had run out. The Varkath warship emerged from hyperspace like a predator uncoiling, its crystalline hull catching the light of the dwarf star and fracturing it into deadly rainbows. Captain Foster stood at the star scavenger's bridge. watching tactical displays light up with warnings she never wanted to see. Multiple weapon systems active, Martins reported, her voice steady despite the fear evident on her face. Their main cannon alone could vaporize a small moon. And they're broadcasting something. A sound filled the bridge, a battle hymn that made the ship's hull vibrate. It carried the same haunting quality as the child's melody, but twisted into something that spoke of vengeance and unstoppable fury. "Security teams to all decks," Foster ordered. "Winters, status of our guest." "Stable." Winters' voice came through the comm, but agitated. "Captain, you need to know. The neural connection goes both ways. The parent isn't just tracking us. They're experiencing everything their child felt during the attack. Every moment of fear, every." The ship lurched as a tractor beam locked on. "This is Commander Zarkax of the Varkath Dominion." A voice thundered through their comms, each word layered with harmonics that made the crew's teeth ache. "You hold what is mine. Surrender now, and I will grant you a warrior's death. Resist, and I will ensure your suffering becomes legend." Foster's fingers tightened on her chair's armrests. "Open a channel." She took a deep breath. "Commander, this is Captain Diana Foster of the salvage vessel Star Scavenger. We found your child critically injured and—" "You dare?" The commander's response made their sensors spike. "I have tracked my child's signature across 12 systems. 3 stations harbored the pirates who attacked our transport. Those stations no longer exist. 5 ships attempted to flee rather than answer my questions. Their debris now serves as a warning to others." Through her neural link, Winters felt the child's reaction to its parent's voice, a complex mixture of love, fear, and shame. "Captain," she cut in, "the commander needs to understand. Show them the medical logs. Show them we helped." Before Foster could respond, the tactical display erupted with new warnings. The Varkath warship was launching boarding pods. "Combat teams detected," Martins announced. 12 warriors, heavily armed. They'll breach our hull in 30 seconds. "All hands, stand down," Foster ordered, her voice carrying the weight of command. "Do not, I repeat, do not attempt to resist. Dr. Winters." "I know," Winters replied softly. "I'm on my way to the airlock. Thompson, keep monitoring the regeneration chamber. If anything changes, just be careful, Doc," Thompson interrupted. "Those scans we took of the commander's ship, the weapons aren't even the scariest part. Their hull is scored with marks from battles we never heard about. This warrior didn't just hunt pirates. They went through anyone who got in their way." The first boarding pod struck the hull, metal screaming as Varkath cutting beams sliced through it like paper. Through the child's eyes, Winters saw flashes of her species' warriors, 9 feet of crystalline armor and unstoppable determination. "Captain," Winters said as she reached the airlock, "if this goes wrong—" "It won't," Foster cut her off. "Because you were right before, about making a difference, about finding something that mattered." She paused. "Just remember what we learned about their empathic abilities. Everything you feel, every intention. They'll know if you're being truthful." The airlock cyclone warning flashed red as the Varkath warriors prepared to breach. Winters stood her ground, thinking of another child, another medical bay, another moment when everything hung in the balance. "Then let them feel the truth," she whispered, squaring her shoulders as the airlock doors began to melt. Commander Zarkax was coming, and in the next few moments, the fate of 2 species would rest on whether a parent's fury could be tempered by the proof of human compassion. The airlock doors didn't just open. They disintegrated. Through the crystalline dust stepped Commander Zarkax, 9 feet of living legend, encased in armor that seemed to drink in light itself. Multiple eyes, arranged in a pattern matching the child's, blazed with internal fire. Behind the commander, 11 Varkath warriors moved with liquid grace, their weapons humming with barely contained energy. Winters stood her ground, though every instinct screamed at her to run. Through the neural link, She felt the child's recognition, its desperate attempt to project calm into the storm of its parents' fury. "Where?" Zarkax's voice resonated through the corridor. "Is my child?" "In our medical bay," Winters answered, forcing herself to meet those burning eyes. "Being treated for self-inflicted injuries sustained during the pirate attack. I'm Dr. Emily Winters, the physician." A crystalline blade materialized at her throat, its edge hovering molecules from her skin. "You dare speak of the attack? My child, heir to the Third Dominion, reduced to hiding in a failing stasis pod while pirates stripped our transport for parts." The commander's auxiliary limbs unfurled, each tipped with weapons that made the blade look primitive. "Give me one reason why I shouldn't reduce this ship to atoms." Instead of answering, Winters projected every memory she could summon through the neural link. The discovery of the pod, the choice to save a child despite the risks, the connection that transcended species. The blade pressed closer. "You think sharing memories will save you? I have heard the final thoughts of countless beings who begged for mercy. Their memories did not change their fate." "Then feel this," Winters whispered, and opened the floodgates of her own past. Rebecca's face in the terraforming hospital, the helplessness as protocols and regulations prevented her from saving her own daughter. The promise she made standing over that small grave, that she would never again let bureaucracy outweigh compassion. Zarkax staggered back as if struck. The blade wavered. "Commander," Foster's voice cut through the tension as she stepped into view, hands raised. "Your child's melody. Check it yourself. Feel for any trace of fear or coercion. We broke every regulation we have, risked everything we've worked for, because we couldn't watch a child suffer. Any child." The massive warrior stood motionless for 3 heartbeats. Then, with a gesture that sent ripples through reality itself, Zarkax established a direct empathic link with the medical bay. The child's melody soared in response, carrying with it every moment of care it had received. "Impossible," Zarkax breathed. "You used our most advanced healing technologies. Technologies your species shouldn't even understand." "We didn't," Winters admitted. "We adapted our regeneration chamber on the fly, letting your child's own biology guide the healing process. We learned as we went, because that's what humans do when a life is at stake." The commander's auxiliary limbs retracted slightly. "You risked contamination, execution, the wrath of a Varkath battle fleet. For what? To save an alien child you'd never met. To save a child," Winters corrected. "Period. The rest was just details." Through their shared connection, something shifted. The commander's fury didn't vanish, but it transformed, becoming tempered with something like wonder. The other warriors lowered their weapons as their leader's next words shook the corridor. "Among my people, there is a saying. The fiercest warrior is the one who protects. In 12 systems, I have burned all who stood in my path. Yet here, on this primitive vessel, I find humans who fought not with weapons, but with healing. Who shielded my child not with armor, but with compassion." Zarkax's eyes shifted color, displaying a complex emotion no human language had words for. Perhaps there is more to your species than our scholars believed." The blade at Winter's throat dissolved into light. Behind them, the child's melody changed, becoming a bridge between 2 species that had never truly understood each other until this moment. And in the stars beyond the viewport, destiny held its breath. The walk to Medical Bay 3 felt like a journey between worlds. Commander Zarkax moved with predatory grace despite the cramped human corridors, crystalline armor adapting to the confined space. Dr. Winters led the way, acutely aware of how the deck plates trembled with each step of the massive warrior. "Your ship bears marks of recent combat," Zarkax observed, auxiliary limbs twitching at the sight of plasma scarring along the walls. "You have faced pirates before." 2 months ago, Captain Foster confirmed, walking alongside them. "They hit us near the Horsehead Nebula. Seemed especially interested in our regeneration chamber." She paused. "Just like the ones who attacked your transport." The commander's eyes shifted color, radiating deadly focus. Explain. They reached the medical bay's observation window. Inside, Thompson worked at the regeneration chamber's controls while Martinez stood guard, her weapon pointedly holstered. The child's scales had regained their iridescent sheen, dancing with colors as it registered its parents' presence. The pirates knew exactly what they were looking for, Winters explained, pulling up sensor logs from both attacks. Their weapons were specifically calibrated to disable rather than destroy. They wanted something intact. Or someone, Zarkax rumbled, auxiliary limbs extending to interface with the human computer system. Data streamed across the displays in both languages. These attack patterns, they mirror classified Varkath training protocols. Foster's eyes narrowed. You're saying they had inside knowledge of both our species? The child's melody suddenly changed, becoming urgent. Through their shared neural link, Winters felt it trying to communicate something vital, a memory it had suppressed out of shame. Show us, she whispered. Please. The memory exploded through their connected minds. Asterisk, the pirates boarding the transport, their leaders speaking in multiple languages, including perfect High Varkath. The child recognizing the stance, the movement patterns, things only someone trained in the warrior caste would know. And beneath it all, a transmission fragment. Package secured. Inform the Coalition the experiment can proceed. Asterisk. The Coalition, Thompson breathed. The same group that's been pushing for aggressive expansion into Varkath space. They'd been lobbying the corporate council for months, claiming your species can't be reasoned with. While similar voices in our dominion, Zarkax added, have argued that humans are too dangerous to be allowed to expand further, that you must be contained before you become a true threat. The commander's armor rippled with barely contained rage. We have been manipulated, both our species. But why target children? Martines asked from her post. Winters felt the answer forming through the neural link before Zarkax spoke it aloud. Because Varkath young are the most emotionally receptive of our kind. By studying one, they could learn to weaponize our empathic abilities, turn our greatest strength into a weakness. The child's melody shifted again, this time carrying notes of determination that made the medical equipment vibrate in harmony. Through their connection, Winters felt its resolution. No more hiding, no more shame. It would stand with those who had saved it, help expose those who had tried to use it. The Coalition has agents in both our governments, Foster said, her voice hard. They're counting on our mutual distrust to keep us from comparing notes. But they didn't count on this. She gestured to the scene before them. Humans and Varkath standing together, united by a child's cry for help. Commander Zarkax turned all eyes to Winters, the warrior's presence filling the room. You saved my child knowing nothing about us except stories of our violence. Treated wounds you barely understood. Faced my fury armed with nothing but truth. A pause. What would you risk to prevent other children from being used this way? Winters thought of Rebecca, of promises made and kept, of bridges built across the stars by simple acts of compassion. Everything, she answered. I'd risk everything. The commander's armor crystallized into its full combat configuration, a sight few humans had seen and lived to describe. Then let us show these conspirators what happens when they make enemies of both our peoples. And in that moment, as human ingenuity prepared to join with Varkath fury, the real battle was about to begin. The Star Scavenger's Bridge had never been designed to accommodate Varkath warriors, but necessity made strange companions. Commander Zarkax stood beside Captain Foster, their tactical displays merged into a hybrid of human and Varkath technology. Through the neural link, Dr. Winters felt the child's satisfaction as both species worked together, its melody weaving through their shared consciousness like a binding thread. Coalition ships approaching from 3 vectors, Martines reported, her console illuminated by crystalline enhancements from the Varkath systems. 2 corporate dreadnoughts and is that a modified medical vessel? Designation: Mercy's Hand. Thompson confirmed from engineering. But these readings don't match any medical ship I've ever seen. Power signatures all wrong. Because it's not meant to heal, Zarkax growled, auxiliary limbs spreading in combat display. It's a mobile laboratory, where they plan to study their package. The Coalition fleet dropped out of hyperspace, their weapons already charging. A transmission cut through their combined communications. This is Director Chen of the Human Varkath Coalition for Progress. You are harboring a stolen research subject. Stand down and prepare to be boarded, or you'll what? Foster cut in, her voice arctic. Murder more children in the name of progress. Spark a war between species to line your pockets. Through their link, Winters felt the child's fear spike at Chen's voice, recognizing it from the pirate attack. But this time, the fear transformed into something else. Something stronger. Now, Thompson, Winters commanded. The engineer slammed his hand down on a crystal-enhanced control panel. Instantly, the child's melody, recorded and amplified through the Star Scavenger's modified systems, broadcast across all frequencies. But this wasn't the cry of a wounded cub. This was a warrior's song, carrying with it every memory of the attack, every piece of evidence of the Coalition's treachery. What are you doing? Chen's voice cracked with panic. All ships, open fire. Don't let them transmit. Too late. Zarkax's voice carried the satisfaction of a predator with prey in sight. The signal is already reaching both our governments. Every ship in 12 systems is receiving proof of your betrayal. And now, the commander raised a crystalline hand. Behind the Star Scavenger, the massive Varkath warship began to move. But it wasn't alone. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected, Martins announced, grinning. Both human and Varkath ships responding to our evidence broadcast. They're working together to surround the Coalition fleet. Impossible, Chen spat. Our analysts said your species would never. Your analysts, Foster interrupted, didn't count on a doctor who'd risk everything to save a child. On a warrior who'd learn to trust instead of destroy. On the simple fact that both our species know what it means to protect our young. The Coalition ships tried to scatter, but they found themselves caught in a perfect crossfire of human and Varkath vessels. Corporate dreadnoughts surrendered one by one as their crews realized the truth. The Mercy's hand attempted to jump to hyperspace, but precision fire from both species ships disabled its engines. A Varkath battle sang. Zarkax rumbled as Coalition escape pods launched in all directions. Teaches that victory comes not from strength alone, but from knowing when to combine strengths with others. Winters felt the child's melody change one final time, becoming a song of triumph that both species could feel in their bones. Through their neural link, she shared a memory of her own. Rebecca's favorite bedtime story, about different animals learning to work together to survive a storm. We have a saying too, she replied, watching human security teams coordinate with Varkath warriors to begin arrests. Unity is stronger than division. The commander's eyes shifted through colors that spoke of hope and possibility. Perhaps it is time both our peoples learned new sayings, together. As Coalition conspirators were led away in chains, as two civilizations began the hard work of building trust, as a child's cry echoed through space one last time. Not in fear or pain, but in joy. The stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter. The alliance that would reshape galaxies had begun. 1 year later, the Great Hall of Harmony housed something unprecedented. The first joint session of the Human Varkath Cooperative Council. The crystal and steel architecture of the hall itself symbolized the merger of both species' aesthetics, its sweeping arches designed to amplify and enhance empathic resonances. Dr. Emily Winters stood at the podium, the former Star Scavenger crew seated behind her. In the year since the Coalition's fall, she'd aged little but changed much. A crystalline implant at her temple marked her as one of the first humans certified in Varkath empathic medicine. A year ago, she began, her words carried by both traditional speakers and empathic resonators. We thought we knew the boundaries between possible and impossible, between us and them. between what we were willing to risk and what we were willing to lose. In the front row, Commander Zarkax sat in full ceremonial armor, now bearing the marks of both military achievement and diplomatic service. Beside the commander, the child, no longer quite so small, wore robes that combined Varkath crystal silk with human educational insignias. The Cubs Cry Protocol, which we ratify today, is more than just a set of laws. Winters continued. It's a promise to every child of both our species that they will never be seen as weapons or tools, that their safety transcends borders and old fears, that they will inherit stars bright with possibility, not shadow. Thompson, now head of the Joint Human-Varkath Engineering Corps, squeezed Martinez's hand. She'd traded her security officer's uniform for the new insignia of the combined fleet. Captain Foster, recently promoted to admiral, watched with pride as her former crew helped shape history. The Star Scavenger, Winters gestured to a hologram of their old ship, has been recommissioned as the first of our joint medical vessels. Its regeneration chamber, once experimental, has become the template for healing centers across both our territories. But the real breakthrough wasn't technological. The child, known now by both its Varkath name and the human nickname Melody, stood and approached the podium. Its scales rippled with colors that transmitted emotions too complex for either species' language alone. Through their permanent neural link, Winters felt its pride, its joy, and its absolute certainty that this was just the beginning. The real breakthrough, Melody spoke in perfect human standard, its voice harmonizing with itself, was learning that strength comes in many forms. My parent taught me the warrior's way, to stand unbending against the storm. It turned to Winters. You taught me the healer's way, to bend without breaking, to find power in gentleness. Commander Zarkax rose, auxiliary limbs extended in the formal gesture of witness. When I hunted across 12 systems, I sought vengeance. Instead, I found wisdom. My child was not saved by weapons or warfare, but by what humans call compassion, a force as powerful as any in our arsenal. The assembled delegates, human and Varkath alike, felt the truth of those words through their shared empathic field. The same connection that the coalition had tried to weaponize had become the foundation of lasting peace. Today, Winters concluded, we launch the first class of cross-species medical students. We open our borders not just to trade, but to understanding. And we prove that the fiercest warrior and the gentlest healer can be one and the same. As the ratification ceremony began, as human hands clasped Varkath auxiliary limbs in friendship, Winters felt a familiar presence in her mind. Through their link, Melody shared a vision, countless stars, countless possibilities, countless children of both species growing up knowing only cooperation instead of conflict. Rebecca would be proud, the young Varkath sent through their connection. You kept your promise. You made a difference. Winters smiled, feeling tears that held both joy and old sorrow. Above them, through the great hall's transparent dome, the stars shone down on two species that had learned the greatest strength often comes not from standing alone, but from standing together. And somewhere in that infinite expanse, a child's cry still echoed, not in fear or pain, but in hope for all that was yet to come.